Each One Believing is a book that resulted from documenting the world tour of Paul McCartney that ran from 2002 to 2003. The tour started out as a 10-show event that led into 2 years of touring. And one of the reasons was that it was just such an amazing show, and Paul was really, for the first time in his career, was embracing the Beatles catalog and a lot of the work that had not been performed ever live. It had only been done in the studio. And he looked back at a lot of this old, wonderful work and really embraced it for the first time and performed it in front of live audiences. And the audiences really loved it. And Paul had such a great time performing it, and the band was so into performing it as well. And it just had this magical feeling to it. So documenting it was for me like a magical experience. I got to see audiences reacting almost like Beatlemania in 1963, 64. And the vibe was just great. And after a couple of shows, I started showing pictures to Paul backstage before the show. And we both sort of had the idea, after looking at some of these pictures, that something really special was going on and that this should be documented, and it could be a book. That went on and on. The show kept going on, and eventually it turned into Each One Believing. When Each One Believing came out, as a way to publicize it, we put together a gallery show. We premiered in London, and it was very successful. People really, really loved seeing this work. And, you know, photography fans, McCartney fans alike, both really enjoyed the work. And seeing behind the scenes of a big rock and roll tour in the 21st century. "12 semi-trucks packed to the gills with equipment and staging, just traveling throughout continents, setting up and tearing down, and just show after show after show. It's quite a feat to pull off one of these tours, and that's what we tried to show in the book, really what goes into producing a tour like this. The show has around 40 prints in it. Well, one of them is called Piano Point, and I took that from behind Paul while he was on stage, right at the end of Let It Be, after he played the last note, and he's got his hand up in the air, and he's pointing, and his head is still down looking at the piano, and he's acknowledging the crowd. You're very, very close to Paul, and you can just see the lights, the spotlights on Paul, creating this rim effect around his body, and you get just the detail with his eyelashes being high lit by the spotlights. It's just a very personal moment. It's Paul McCartney on stage performing one of his legendary songs. He's so comfortable on stage. He's spent so many years performing on stage and just loves to perform. It's one of my favorite pictures. Another picture that I really love from the show is the shot that I had taken while Paul was talking to, it's a throat specialist, and basically he sort of lost his voice the night before and came into sound check that morning for the show and tried to sing at sound check, and basically nothing came out. And they had called a throat specialist to come up from London to look at him, and he examined Paul in Paul's dressing room and said, "There's no way you can perform tonight. In fact, take this medication and go home and don't talk for 3 days." So they canceled the show, and the one thing that you see in this photograph is the expression on Paul McCartney's face when he hears the news that he can't perform that night. It's a little bit of shock, I think, because in his long career, I don't think he's missed more than 1 or 2 performances, which is actually in itself pretty amazing. There'll be a show of the Prince at the Morrison Hotel Gallery in Soho, and the opening will be on March 22nd.